Man ties dog and puppies to a tree, leaving them for wolves. Then something incredible happened. David's hands tightened on the steering wheel as his truck rumbled down the narrow dirt road, cutting through the dense forest. The sky above was a muted gray, heavy with impending rain, casting an oppressive shadow over the world below. Beside him on the passenger seat sat Bella, her golden coat dull in the dim light. She wagged her tail lightly, oblivious to the storm brewing both in the skies and in the heart of the man she trusted without question. In the back, her 5 puppies huddled together, tiny bodies quivering from the jolting ride. David's jaw was set, his face hard as stone. His mind was made up. Bella had always been a good dog, loyal and obedient, but the puppies were a problem. They were scrawny, sickly little things, not the robust, marketable offspring he needed to make his breeding business profitable. Keeping them would cost more than they were worth, and David had no room for liabilities. This was the only way, he told himself. They wouldn't survive anyway. When the truck finally came to a stop in a small clearing, Bella perked up, her ears swiveling. She leaned forward, her nose brushing David's arm, seeking reassurance. He pushed her away brusquely, his expression a mask of indifference. Grabbing a length of rope, he stepped out of the truck and walked to the back, ignoring Bella's soft whine. He opened the tailgate, and the puppies stirred, their high-pitched cries echoing faintly in the still air. "Come on," David muttered, reaching for Bella's collar. She followed him without hesitation, her steps hesitant yet trusting. He tied the rope tightly around a sturdy tree trunk, looping it around her neck and securing her to the spot. The puppies, still too young to move far on their own, squirmed at her feet, seeking warmth and safety. Bella licked their small faces, her maternal instinct overriding any sense of unease about the unfamiliar surroundings. David stepped back and looked at them. Bella with her soft brown eyes full of trust, her tail wagging faintly, and the helpless pups huddled close to her. Something flickered in his gaze, but it was gone as quickly as it came. He turned on his heel and strode back to the truck. Bella barked softly, a plaintive sound that rose to a desperate whine as the engine roared to life. Her golden eyes followed the vehicle as it disappeared into the shadows of the forest, leaving her and her young behind. The clearing grew quiet, the stillness broken only by the distant call of a bird and the whimpering of the pups. Bella tugged at the rope, the rough fibers biting into her neck, but she persisted, her movements growing more frantic. Her mind, guided by instincts as old as time, screamed one thing: protect her family. She clawed at the ground, the dirt beneath her paws turning soft as she pulled and twisted. The rope held firm, and panic surged through her. Her pups cried louder, their tiny bodies trembling against the damp earth. Bella paused, her sides heaving as she caught her breath. The world around her seemed vast and unforgiving, a far cry from the warmth and safety of the place she once called home. She lowered her head and bit down on the rope. Her teeth worked tirelessly, the fibers slowly fraying under her relentless effort. The minutes dragged on, each one an eternity, but Bella refused to give up. Her puppies needed her. Finally, the rope snapped. Bella stumbled backward, the sudden release catching her off guard, but she quickly regained her balance. She nudged her pups, her nose brushing their tiny bodies as if to reassure them. The forest loomed large and menacing, but Bella stood firm. Her ears twitched, scanning for danger, and her eyes gleamed with a quiet determination. She had been abandoned, but she was not defeated. Bella gathered her pups close and took her first step into the unknown, her heart filled with a singular purpose: to keep them alive, no matter what it took. Bella's paws pressed against the damp soil, her ears swiveling at every crackle of leaves or rustle in the underbrush. The forest was vast and unyielding, a maze of towering trees and shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly. For the first time in her life, she was truly on her own, with no walls to shelter her, no steady hand to provide food. But she was no longer just Bella the pet. She was a mother, and her pups depended entirely on her. Hunger gnawed at her belly, but her priority was clear. Find food, find safety. The first night was the hardest. Bella managed to guide her pups to a shallow burrow beneath the roots of a massive tree. The space was cramped and smelled of damp earth, but it offered some protection from the icy wind that howled through the forest. Her puppies whimpered, their tiny bodies shivering as they pressed close to her warmth. Bella wrapped herself around them, her body acting as a shield against the cold. She barely slept, her senses alert for any sign of danger. As dawn broke, a pale light filtered through the canopy above, illuminating the forest in a faint golden hue. Bella ventured out cautiously, leaving her pups tucked safely in their makeshift den. Her nose guided her, seeking the faintest trace of food. She came across a cluster of fallen berries, but most were shriveled and bitter. Still, it was better than nothing. She swallowed them quickly, saving a few to carry back to her pups. Her instincts told her that these scraps would not be enough to sustain them for long. She would have to hunt. Hunting did not come naturally to Bella. She had been raised on bowls of kibble and scraps of human food, not the chase and kill of the wild. But hunger sharpened her resolve. She stalked through the forest, her movements hesitant at first but gradually more focused. It took hours of trial and error, but she finally managed to catch a squirrel, pouncing with a strength and precision she hadn't known she possessed. She returned to the den triumphant, the squirrel clamped tightly in her jaws. Her pups yipped excitedly as she tore the meat into small pieces, feeding each one in turn. Their tiny tails wagged weakly, a spark of life returning to their fragile forms. Bella's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and determination. She would do whatever it took to keep them alive. The forest, however, had its own rules, and it was not kind to the inexperienced. Over the next few days, Bella faced challenge after challenge. Rain poured in relentless sheets, soaking their den and leaving the pups huddled and miserable. Predators lurked in the shadows, their eyes glinting in the dim light. Bella fought off a prowling fox one night, her growls fierce and unyielding as she defended her young. Despite her best efforts, the unforgiving wild claimed 2 of her pups. The first succumbed to the biting cold, its tiny body too fragile to endure. The second, weaker and smaller than its siblings, slipped away quietly during the night. Bella nuzzled their lifeless forms, her grief a deep, unspoken ache. She buried them beneath the roots of their shelter, her actions instinctual and filled with quiet reverence. The loss weighed heavily on her, but she could not afford to linger. Her remaining pups needed her. Each day brought new lessons. Bella learned to identify edible plants, to follow the faint trails left by small prey, and to evade larger predators. She grew lean and muscular, her golden coat now streaked with dirt and leaves. Her pups, too, began to adapt. They grew stronger, their tiny legs gaining the strength to toddle behind her as she moved their den to safer locations. Bella's bond with them deepened with each hardship they faced together. Though the forest was harsh and unyielding, Bella's determination only grew fiercer. She had lost 2, but she vowed not to lose another. In the heart of the wilderness, surrounded by danger and uncertainty, Bella found a strength she never knew she had. Bella's instincts screamed at her to stay hidden, but the rustling in the bushes ahead told her she no longer had that choice. Her remaining 3 pups huddled close, their tiny bodies trembling against the forest floor as a low growl echoed through the stillness. Emerging from the shadows, a pack of wolves appeared, their gray and black coats blending seamlessly with the surrounding wilderness. At their head stood a massive alpha, his amber eyes gleaming with a mixture of curiosity and menace. Bella positioned herself between the wolves and her pups, her golden fur bristling. Though she had no chance of defeating the pack, she refused to back down. Her maternal instincts overrode every ounce of fear coursing through her. The alpha took a step forward, his powerful frame exuding dominance. Bella growled low, her teeth bared in warning. The other wolves began circling, their movements calculated and predatory. Bella's pups whimpered softly, their cries rising like fragile pleas in the tense atmosphere. For a brief moment, the alpha paused, his gaze shifting from Bella to the helpless pups behind her. The tension was palpable, each second dragging into an eternity. Then, as if deciding she posed no threat, the alpha barked once and the pack halted. Bella remained frozen, her body taut with vigilance. The wolves sniffed the air, their interest seemingly waning. The alpha turned and began to walk away, his pack following suit, but not without lingering glances at Bella and her pups. Relief washed over her, but she didn't dare move until the last of the wolves disappeared into the underbrush. That night, Bella didn't sleep. She stayed alert, her ears twitching at every sound, her gaze scanning the darkness for any sign of the wolves' return. Days passed, and Bella found herself tracking the wolf pack from a safe distance. Her instincts told her it was a dangerous gamble, but she had no choice. The pack was thriving in this unforgiving wilderness, and if she was to keep her pups alive, she needed to learn their ways. She watched as they hunted, their coordination and strength a sharp contrast to her own solitary efforts. She observed how they marked their territory, how they moved as one cohesive unit, and how they protected their young. There was a fierce intelligence in their actions, and Bella absorbed every detail, her sharp mind piecing together the lessons of survival. One evening, she came across a young wolf separated from the pack. It was limping, its hind leg caught in a crude snare left by hunters. The cub's whimpers pierced the quiet, and Bella hesitated. Approaching the cub could mean exposing herself to danger, but something deep within her urged her forward. Cautiously, she approached, her movements slow and deliberate. The cub growled weakly, its eyes wide with fear, but Bella's gentle demeanor eventually calmed it. With careful bites, she tore at the snare until the cub was free. It limped away but paused to glance back at her before disappearing into the trees. That act of compassion did not go unnoticed. The next day, Bella found herself surrounded again by the wolf pack. This time, however, their posture was different. The alpha regarded her with a curious tilt of his head, his sharp amber eyes studying her. Bella stood her ground, her body tense but no longer hostile. Slowly, the alpha took a step forward and sniffed the air around her. Satisfied, he barked an order, and the pack dispersed, leaving Bella and her pups unharmed. In the days that followed, an unspoken truce developed between Bella and the wolves. They allowed her to linger on the fringes of their territory, scavenging what was left of their kills. She reciprocated by sharing scraps of her own meager hunts. Trust was built slowly, like the careful layering of stones to create a foundation. The turning point came when Bella encountered the same injured cub again, this time trailing behind the pack. The cub recognized her and nudged her side affectionately, earning a low growl of approval from the alpha. Bella began to feel the faint stirrings of hope. The wolves, once a symbol of the wilderness's ruthlessness, were now allies of a kind. Her pups, growing stronger by the day, no longer trembled at the sight of the pack but watched them with curious eyes. Bella knew she had found something precious, a fragile but vital connection that could mean survival for her family. She was no longer alone. The forest, with all its dangers, no longer felt as daunting. Together, even if in silent cooperation, they had begun to rewrite the rules of the wild. Bella's new life alongside the wolf pack was fragile but functional. The unspoken truce allowed her and her pups to exist on the fringes of the wolves' territory, scavenging and surviving. The wolves no longer viewed her as an intruder, and the injured cub she had saved often lingered close to her, a quiet bond forming between them. Her pups, growing stronger each day, began mimicking the wolves' behavior, learning to stalk and pounce. The forest no longer felt like an insurmountable enemy. It was a realm of challenges she had slowly begun to master. But the wilderness had a way of reminding even the strongest of its harsh and unrelenting rules. One cold, misty morning, Bella noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The forest was unnervingly silent, the usual chorus of birds and rustling leaves replaced by an eerie stillness. Her ears perked up, her body tense as she scanned the undergrowth. She wasn't the only one who sensed it. The wolf pack had gathered nearby, their movements sharp and deliberate. The alpha stood at the forefront, his stance rigid, his amber eyes scanning the horizon. Something was coming, and Bella felt it too. A foreign, hostile presence invading their fragile haven. The danger revealed itself as another wolf pack entered the territory, their appearance sudden and forceful. This group was leaner, hungrier, and far more aggressive. Bella immediately herded her pups behind her, her instincts flaring to protect them at all costs. The alpha of the rival pack, a scarred and wiry beast, stood nose to nose with Bella's alpha, a growl rumbling low in his throat. The tension exploded as the rival wolves lunged, and chaos erupted. The fight was brutal, a blur of snarling, snapping jaws and bodies colliding with raw force. Bella's heart pounded as she kept her pups hidden in a dense thicket, shielding them from the violence. From her hiding place, she could see the wolves of her newfound pack struggling against their feral adversaries. The rival pack had numbers on their side, and it was clear that Bella's pack was losing ground. She couldn't stand by and watch. Summoning every ounce of courage, Bella darted from the thicket, her golden fur a flash of movement in the chaos. Her sudden appearance startled the rival wolves, buying her pack precious moments. She lunged at one of the attackers, sinking her teeth into its hind leg. The wolf yelped and retreated, its focus momentarily broken. The alpha of Bella's pack saw her intervention and seized the opportunity, rallying his wolves with a ferocious bark. Bella didn't stop. She weaved through the melee, her movements swift and calculated, using her speed and agility to distract the enemy. She wasn't as strong as the wolves, but she was clever, and in the chaos, her strategy made a difference. The tide began to turn. Bella's actions gave her pack the momentum they desperately needed. The rival wolves, sensing their advantage slipping away, began to retreat. The battle ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving the clearing littered with the wounded and the weary. Bella, panting and battered, returned to her pups, licking them gently to reassure them. The alpha approached her, his massive frame towering over her, but his posture was no longer one of dominance. His gaze held something akin to respect, a recognition of her courage and the role she had played in saving his pack. That night, the pack rested together under the shelter of the trees. Bella lay among them, her pups nestled close. The injured cub she had saved now curled up beside her. The alpha kept watch, his eyes scanning the forest for any lingering threats, but his body language was calm, almost protective. Bella knew she had crossed an unspoken boundary. She was no longer just a tolerated outsider. She was a part of their world now. Her actions had earned her a place among them, not through strength but through her unwavering determination to protect her family and the bonds she had forged. The forest, once a place of relentless danger, now felt different. It was still wild and unforgiving, but Bella had proven she could stand against it. She had faced down predators, weathered storms, and now fought alongside a pack of wolves. Her journey had changed her, molding her into something stronger, more resilient. As she lay with her pups and her newfound family, Bella closed her eyes, not with fear, but with a sense of belonging. She had found her place, not through force, but through love, courage, and the will to survive. Bella's integration into the wolf pack was no longer tentative but woven into the rhythm of their lives. The wolves, once wary of her golden presence, now moved with her as one. The alpha had accepted her role among them, and her pups were beginning to flourish under the watchful eyes of both their mother and the pack. The injured wolf cub she had once rescued became a steadfast companion, its loyalty to Bella unwavering. Together, they formed an unusual but formidable unit, blending the instincts of the wolves with Bella's intelligence and maternal instincts. The forest, once a hostile terrain, was now their shared home, and Bella found herself learning and teaching in equal measure. The wolves taught Bella how to navigate the forest's complexities, from identifying safe water sources to following trails of elusive prey. In return, Bella's unique perspective brought innovation to the pack's survival strategies. She showed them how to dig trenches to protect their dens from flooding rains and how to work together to drive prey into traps formed by the natural landscape. Her pups, though smaller and less fierce than the wolf cubs, adapted quickly, learning the ways of the wild from their lupin companions. They began to mimic the hunting techniques of the older wolves, their little legs and sharp eyes growing more confident with each passing day. The bonds within the pack grew deeper with time. Bella found herself increasingly trusted, even during hunts. The alpha allowed her to join in the chase, and her speed and agility often made her an asset. The other wolves no longer regarded her as an outsider but as a member of their family. Yet, Bella's bond with her pups remained her greatest strength. She nurtured them tirelessly, ensuring that even as they grew stronger and more independent, they felt the warmth of her unwavering love. Her adopted wolf cub became a guardian to her pups, often positioning itself protectively beside them during times of rest. Despite their growing strength, the pack faced challenges. A sudden cold snap brought frost earlier than expected, and prey became scarce. Bella felt the gnawing hunger return, a reminder of those early, harrowing days when survival seemed impossible. The pack worked tirelessly, traversing greater distances to find food. During one such hunt, Bella discovered a trap left by hunters, a cruel contraption of rusted steel hidden beneath fallen leaves. Her sharp nose detected its danger, and she carefully led the wolves around it. It was a stark reminder that their unity and cunning were the only things standing between them and the threats that loomed beyond the forest. One afternoon, Bella encountered a young deer trapped in a thicket. The deer's slender legs were tangled in the dense vines, and its cries of panic echoed through the woods. The wolves circled, their instincts urging them to attack, but Bella hesitated. There was something familiar in the deer's wide, frightened eyes, an echo of her own desperation on the day David had left her tied to the tree. She barked softly, catching the alpha's attention, and her posture conveyed a clear message. This was not their kill. The alpha, though puzzled, relented, signaling the pack to stand down. Bella carefully freed the deer, its trembling body bolting into the trees as soon as it was free. The wolves watched her with a mix of confusion and awe, but they did not challenge her. That moment solidified Bella's place as not only a protector but also a leader with her own sense of justice. As the days turned to weeks, the pack began to thrive again. Bella's pups, now stronger and more agile, began joining the older wolves in their activities, their golden fur blending more naturally with their environment. The pack itself grew more cohesive, their bond forged not just by blood but by the shared experiences of survival and trust. Bella often found herself gazing at her pups and the wolves around her with a sense of quiet pride. Against all odds, they had formed a family, one that defied the boundaries of species and circumstances. The forest, with its shifting seasons and constant challenges, no longer felt like a battleground but a place of belonging. Bella had not just survived. She had found purpose and unity in the most unlikely of alliances. Her journey had transformed her from a dog abandoned and powerless into a leader and protector, proving that even in the wildest, harshest of places, love and resilience could create something extraordinary. The forest was alive with whispers of an approaching danger, a subtle shift in the air that Bella felt deep in her bones. The wolves sensed it too, their movements sharp and wary, their golden eyes scanning the woods for unseen threats. Bella's pups, now agile and curious, stayed close to her side, their playful innocence giving way to caution as they mirrored the pack's unease. The harmony they had built over weeks now faced an invisible shadow, one that carried the scent of metal and smoke. Bella caught the first sign before the others, a faint glint through the trees, too smooth and unnatural to belong to the forest. Her heart tightened as her nose picked up the unmistakable scent of humans. Memories of David, the truck, and the rope flashed in her mind, but she pushed them aside. She had no time to dwell on the past. The danger was here, and it was real. She barked softly, catching the alpha's attention, and her alert posture conveyed what words could not. The alpha growled low, his hackles rising as the pack gathered in silent preparation. The hunters arrived soon after, their heavy boots crunching against the underbrush. They moved in formation, rifles slung over their shoulders, their voices low but sharp. Bella and the wolves watched from the shadows, their forms hidden by the dense foliage. The hunters were searching, their eyes scanning the ground for tracks, their fingers brushing against triggers. Bella's sharp instincts told her this was no ordinary hunting party. They weren't after deer or small game. They were after the wolves. Bella nudged her pups, her heart racing as she led them deeper into the forest. The pack followed silently, their movements fluid as they navigated their territory. The wolves trusted the alpha's leadership, and by extension, they trusted Bella. But the humans were relentless. Shots echoed in the distance, sharp cracks that shattered the silence and sent birds screeching into the sky. Bella flinched at each sound, her mind racing as she calculated their next move. They needed a plan, a way to evade the hunters while keeping the pack safe. As the hunters advanced, Bella's golden fur became both a liability and an advantage. It made her an easy target but also a beacon for her pack. She darted out of cover, her movements quick and deliberate as she drew the hunter's attention. A shout rang out as one of the men spotted her, his rifle raised. Bella ran, her legs pumping as she led them away from the pack, her heart pounding with the weight of the decision. She zigzagged through the trees, her sharp mind anticipating every step, every shot. Behind her, the wolves moved in silence, slipping away unnoticed. The alpha led the pack to safety, guiding them to a hidden ravine far from the hunter's reach. Bella's pups followed reluctantly, their eyes wide with fear as they glanced back at their mother's disappearing form. Bella continued to run, her breath coming in sharp bursts as she pushed herself to the limits. The hunters struggled to keep up, their heavy gear and lack of familiarity with the forest slowing them down. Finally, Bella reached a narrow stream. She leaped into the cold water, the splash masking her scent as she waded downstream. The hunters hesitated, their frustration evident as they scanned the area. Bella crouched low in the reeds, her golden coat blending with the shimmering light of the water. The men muttered among themselves before turning back, their voices fading as they retreated into the forest. Bella waited, her muscles tense, until she was certain they were gone. When she emerged from the stream, her body ached, but her resolve was unshaken. She followed the faint scent of her pack, her heart lifting as she heard the familiar sounds of their howls in the distance. Bella's pups rushed to meet her, their small bodies colliding with hers in a flurry of relief and affection. The alpha approached, his amber eyes locking with hers. He lowered his head slightly, a gesture of respect that needed no words. That night, the pack gathered beneath the stars. Bella lay at the center, her pups curled beside her, the injured cub pressed against her flank. The wolves formed a protective circle around them, their unity stronger than ever. The forest, though still wild and unpredictable, now felt like a haven, a place they had claimed through resilience and trust. Bella closed her eyes, exhaustion mingling with a profound sense of belonging. She had faced the hunters, the forest, and her own fears, emerging not just as a survivor but as a protector, a leader, and a mother. Against all odds, she had found her place, proving that even in the harshest wilderness, love and courage could triumph. Thank you for watching this incredible story of resilience and survival. If you enjoyed the journey of Jack and Shadow, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling tales. Your support helps us bring more captivating stories to life. Stay tuned for the next adventure. We can't wait to see you again in our upcoming stories. See you soon.